Terrence Asper, and
Here.
Dave McBride. For staff,
Here.
Town Manager John Burt, myself, Greg Hanover, Director of Public Works, and for AECom, our consultant, we have John Hapowitz and Jonathan Ives. So welcome everybody on this snowy evening. I guess this is one of the advantages of Zoom. You don't have to cancel these meetings. On the agenda tonight, we just want to kind of briefly go over some of the determinations that we've made to date, particularly with the elevation of the roadway and the profile and such. And then really get into some of the issues with the sidewalk and kind of have an open discussion on what the committee, would like to see as far as the sidewalk goes. Limits, location, and and some of those are going to bring in some right-of-way challenges, such as if we put the sidewalk on the north side of the road, that's just going to, impact those folks even more so with fill and whatnot. So we'll spend a good deal of time tonight talking about those. So with that, I guess at this point, I'll turn it over to John. You can kind of go through the summary.
Thanks, Greg.
Okay, just know we've got Michael Noel has just joined us too, as a task force member.
Hi, good evening.
All right, well, so far we've determined the span length of the bridge. Said we want to remove the entire existing bridge to down below the mud line. And to span over that, it's going to take a span of about 85 to 95 feet. And just to kind of rehash why we want to span over that whole existing bridge, down below the abutment here, what you can't see is a field of wood piles, timber piles, which are basically like telephone poles that were driven down into the ground to support this bridge when it was constructed. And those are probably still intact and in good shape down below the mud line, and would make it very difficult for us to build our proposed substructures through that. So we're going to build behind the existing abutments. So we'll cut those off and remove the existing abutments in their entirety. So those will be buried below the mud line, and you'll never see them or again. For the typical section, what we're proposing is 2 11-foot lanes and 2 5-foot shoulders, which will double as bike lanes. And we've shown a single 5-foot 6-inch sidewalk. And again, as we said, the limits of that sidewalk are to be determined, which would be the major discussion point tonight. For the profile, we have the goal of achieving 1 foot of freeboard at the 100-year flood, which is basically keeping the roadway dry at the 100-year flood. And as we discussed during the last meeting, that does require a fair amount of fill along the causeway. And we talked about the properties that are most impacted by that fill, especially 991 and 981 Groton Long Point Road, where the fill approaches 3 feet. So it's a substantial impact to those property owners.
Okay, now wait a minute. So just give me a chance to read it.
Sure.
So if we go at 1,000 Groton Long Point, which way are we going? 1,000
to the
is
west, and let me let's see here if I can. Go into the internet here for a minute.
Yep.
Are you still seeing my screen?
Yeah, I see it.
Yep.
That's-
So 1,000 Groton Long Point is the first property to the
Okay.
southwest here.
Okay.
And 991 and 981
Oh,
are the
okay.
closest properties to the northwest.
Good. So let's take a look back at that other slide. Please.
Sure.
So 1,000, you've got a current elevation, current edge
About
of
9
the road,
feet.
9 feet, and to do it, you're gonna go up a foot and a 1.7, right? And you're
Yes.
going up 3 feet at 91, which is, yeah, the red house, right? Red roof.
Correct.
And then about 3 feet at the next one. So you're coming up 3 feet, 3 feet, and 2 feet. Okay,
Yeah.
good, thanks.
So we've already kind of gone through this. These are the impacts without a sidewalk in front of these residences. So getting into the sidewalk, I think this meeting, as Greg and I discussed, will be a little bit different tonight. And intending this to be kind of an open forum and a brainstorming session for what we would hope to get out of the sidewalk. First I want to hear who is in favor of having a sidewalk or incorporating a sidewalk in the project, and then what those individuals would like to get out of the sidewalk, whether it's, connectivity from one point to another. Is it to get to the bridge for a viewpoint, or are there other reasons to have the sidewalk? And then where would the sidewalk go? North side, south side? If right of way was not an issue, what would be the ideal location for the sidewalk? What would the eastern and western limits be? And then after this, we'll talk about what the right of way implications are. So. Would anyone like to offer an opinion on that? Now, and I can go back to the aerial view. This is just the town GIS website. We also have Google at our disposal here.
Are there sidewalks on the Groton Long Point Road? The East Shore Road, East Shore Avenue?
There's a sidewalk along the west side of East Shore Ave.
Okay,
So that.
That was on the east side, John. Or is it the west side?
West side.
The west side, the far side of East Shore Ave has the
Yep,
sidewalk.
you're right.
I think it'd be a great idea to have the sidewalk right from that corner all the way headed east to Esker Point
yeah, that's
on the south side of the road.
it's the only thing that makes sense. If you're gonna have
Yeah.
a sidewalk.
Yeah, that'd be great for access for everybody.
Are there any sidewalks on the fisherman side currently?
No,
No,
So the sidewalks stop well before the bridge currently.
there is no
Yes,
sidewalk.
on the east side or the west side, there are no sidewalks along Groton Long Point Road.
No,
Yeah.
that's right.
And where do they stop? At the Esker Point parking entrance?
There are no sidewalks.
Well, there are sidewalks up the road.
Yeah, they're
They
north.
just stop at, they stop near 215, or they stop at the entrance to the Esker Point Beach currently, correct?
no, nope.
They walk on shoulders. I know because I ride the bike on it.
Yeah, Well, there is a sidewalk, sort of.
So this is beyond Esker Point Beach to the east, and along Groton Long Point Road, there is a grass shoulder, you might call a snow shelf. And as is sometimes the case when we have bridges, there is a sidewalk on the bridge, but there is no formal continuation of that on either side of this bridge over the railroad.
Right.
So we'd be
the
placing a
bridge could have
sidewalk
been built
in a
with
new
the
area that
potential.
doesn't have any existing sidewalks.
Yeah, it was built with the potential to add a sidewalk on either side, but there is no concrete or paved sidewalk there now. So as you
Thank
head toward Groton Long Point here, see there's a crosswalk from the parking lot over to the beach, but no sidewalk on either side of the road.
No.
And then as you continue along Groton Long Point Road here, past the restaurant and over the bridge toward Groton Long Point, we have the very, very narrow shoulders now and no sidewalk. So there's no sidewalk until you get to this East Shore Ave here.
John, let's drop back a couple of slides. Just a little bit. There's a couple of things. No, I don't mean, on your view there.
Sure.
The, go back a little bit. Just you're proposing two 11-foot lanes and two 5-foot shoulders.
Yes.
So you've got 22, 32 of a blacktop, more or less. And what does that look like? That's wider than this guy right now, right? I could look, I measured it, but
It's yeah, it's a little bit wider than the existing bridge. Yes.
okay. So I guess two things. If you're talking about a sidewalk width is what? Another 6 feet?
It's about 6 feet. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we have to think about it's 6 feet into the adjoining property somewhere in there. But what are the cost implications?
Cost implications are, it's basically, I'd look at it as square foot cost. As you increase width, you're increasing cost, approximately, proportionately. As you're building out the causeway, could be even more.
I'm thinking about the sidewalk now.
Yeah.
If I didn't do the sidewalk, am I $1 million to the good, $500,000 to the good?
If you don't do,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, could you say that again? If you don't do the sidewalk?
Yeah, what's the sidewalk costing me, right? If I ran a sidewalk from East Shore Avenue to Esker Point, must be about I don't know, half a mile, a little less. It might cost me what? Dollars and cents for the construction.
Let's see.
Do I recall from a previous meeting that the cost would be picked up by the state, whether or not there is a sidewalk? And it's not something the town's going to have to pay for anyway, right?
If we go into the federal local bridge program, we would have 80% funding.
Right.
80%
So,
federal funding, 20% town funding.
all right.
If you were, something over $5 million for the project, let's say, and you considered the sidewalk to be a square foot addition to that percentage wise, you'd be potentially on the order of magnitude of adding $1 million to the project. Just in, looking at square feet of additional width and length. If you ran the sidewalk for the full length of the project, you have that much additional construction. And then again, the town is picking up 20% of that.
So sidewalks have the same eligibility as the road construction does.
It does if it's constructed along with the project. Yes.
Right.
Even
So
if it's beyond the scope of the project in terms of the size.
I think the sidewalk limits are going to be the same as your construction limits, or at the most. You're
so
not
it's to our advantage.
Continue the sidewalk beyond our roadway project limits and expect that to be paid for under the project. So I think that as long as the sidewalk limits are within your roadway limits, it would be picked up under the Federal Local Bridge Program grant.
Okay. I have one question. Is does the town have, or the state have is it a 50-foot section that the road is contained in? Is that generally the case for most roads, 50 feet? That the state has kind of governance over?
That is generally the case, and I believe this is at least 50 feet. I don't recall off the top of my head.
Okay, so we're probably not going to. I mean, including a sidewalk with the road will still be within that 50 feet, I would imagine.
Yeah,
that shouldn't be a problem, right?
No, I mean, we will need to get some slope rights because we're raising the grade of the causeway from private properties, but the sidewalk itself would be within the existing right of way.
Okay.
That's correct. Yes.
Greg, if I recall correctly, at the last meeting, when we were talking about roadway elevations and what it might mean to access to those properties, there was going to be some communication with the property owners to see what was going on, how they might respond. Did anything happen with that?
No, I wanted to get some more information about what we might do with sidewalks and get some more definitive I don't want to say plans, but some more information from our consultant before I contacted them. So I have not yet.
Okay.
Okay, so we've heard that there's some interest in having the sidewalk along the south edge of road.
Mm-hmm.
We know that there is going to be some cost implication if we do that. I will offer up that we have received feedback from the property owner at 1000 Groton Long Point Road, who is not in favor of having a sidewalk along the front of his property. just to get that out there.
What about, did you ask him about roadway elevation?
We haven't engaged the property owners to date, but this property owner reached out
Ah,
with some feedback. So,
And I think his thought was that all along 215 or the main road there, the highway or the path that you showed earlier was on the other side of the road. So why would we change it to that side? I think was what his train of thought was.
Yeah, I think it totally makes sense to have it on the south side, and I don't think the opinion of one homeowner, it's not like we're going to have it on his property. I don't see why that would. Yeah.
he may not be there year round to keep it snow clear or something, huh?
Yeah.
Well,
I think Groton Long Point itself takes care of the sidewalks as part of their plowing, because they recognize that a lot of the homeowners are away in the winter.
Good point.
That's correct. And we take care of the roads, our roads as well.
Yeah, but I do want to point out that from the bridge to East Shore Avenue is a town of Groton road. It's town of Groton right away.
Mhm.
This is
sidewalk would
David
fall under our
McBride there.
ordinance.
I would like to comment on that. I do believe there's some discussion that may not be entirely correct. And I don't think this is the place to go into it. But Groton Long Point has records that indicate that is a Groton Long Point road from the bridge into Groton Long Point.
I would respectfully disagree, Dave, but I've got attorneys and land surveyors that have researched this. So if you guys have something, I would
I
really see what you have.
I understand, and we
obviously
do, so I will.
Project.
I can share that with you because it's from prior town managers that we have legal records that indicate that.
There was talk of giving it to you, but that never transpired.
Again, I don't think this is the proper form for that, but definitely an item that we may need to
But I
discuss
just don't
in the
want the
future.
committee to think that the town doesn't have rights here.
Well, the committee should hear both sides of the story, and that it appears that there's a disconnect in what may be thought of or what may be true or whatever it is. That's all.
How does that affect the bridge construction?
yeah, it's a good question. I don't think it does.
Dave, I think you just bought yourself $2.5 million of a bridge.
No, I think all the information that I have indicates that the bridge is a town bridge or a state bridge. I'm not sure of the wording, but it's the land in question that the land on the Groton Long Point side. That's kind of what I was referring to. Again, not the place to hear. I'm trying to kind of come to, make this work as a committee. So we'll move on and address that at a later date, I guess.
Well, I guess the reason that I bring it up is this project is a lot more than the span of the bridge. It's the causeway on either side. And we're talking about a roadway elevation that goes right down to the stop sign, basically. That certainly is crossing over then, quote, Groton Long Point property.
Understand, and Groton Long Point's in support of this, so I don't want to give any appearance that we're not. I just want to make sure if it is the case that it's Groton Long Point property, I need to make sure that Groton Long Point understands that and is willing to move forward with this project as it's designed. That's all. And I think we are in support of this because it is a serious issue that we need to address.
Yeah, otherwise you're going to need a boat. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, it does.
Well, it's a public safety issue for sure.
If that is even on the table, one of the thoughts that I had for the owner at 1,000 is he's concerned about some liability on the sidewalk, and we're sort of joking about cleaning the snow, but that's really then taken care of because that's in Groton Long Point Association hands, cleaning it and liability for the sidewalk, right?
That's correct. The land, in front of those three houses, certainly, I don't think there's any dispute that that's Groton Long Point land. And if there was a sidewalk there, that was, the Groton Long Point support of that sidewalk because it is on Groton Point Lane. Groton Point would be responsible for that as part of its domain, handling of the sidewalks.
Right. Interesting.
Okay, is there any counterpoint to discuss then? And are there any opinions otherwise as to what the preferred extents of the sidewalk would be?
So do most people agree that it should be on the south side?
Yes,
Okay. Do most people agree that it should go from like Esker Point to East Shore Avenue?
Yeah, if you're going to build it.
yep.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good. What about
This is David. I just want to make it clear that I'm not in agreement with that. I would need to get the support of members of the Groton Point Association for those matters. Anything beyond the bridge.
Okay.
That actually brings a good question to mind. If there was an interest in having the sidewalk run from Groton Point out Groton Long Point Association area, say East Shore Ave, out to the bridge, why would it not continue beyond that? Or, what would be the point of having the sidewalk out to the bridge where it stops at the bridge?
Well, I think
That was going to be one of my questions as well. Is why are we building a sidewalk and nowhere to get to that sidewalk?
Right. So what is the basic reason for the sidewalk? Is it to connect the beach?
Hey, if any of you guys go down there at all during the day, there are hundreds of people that walk along that road
You bet.
with like a 2-foot shoulder on the north side. There's a lot of people that walk on that, and we definitely need a sidewalk.
Yep. And we run into them on the bikes. Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
They're there regularly. And the
Are you
access,
referring to a sidewalk from 215 to the bridge? That area where there's no sidewalk currently?
No, the whole length of all the way to East Shore.
Understand, but I think the question was, what's the plan for the sidewalk from 215 to the bridge? Or is this, because it sounds like we're just addressing or discussing from the bridge to Groton Point?
I think it should go from the parking lot at Esker Point Beach all the way across the bridge to Eastern Point to East Shore Road.
no. That's
And
what
what
we're
would be the
talking
cost of that?
That's what I asked.
And what would be the
earlier,
cost of-
$1 million.
We're offering that up as, being in the ballpark of
Right.
$1 million.
That's just a guess, right? And
Right.
yeah.
Could be less.
And with the overall scope of the bridge, if the town's only paying 20%, I think it's a worthwhile investment.
And can we get some formal guidance on that? Because in my past, I've found that extensions of a project are not deemed as the same reimbursable rate as the initial project. So I would want to make sure that this group, as well as any future group, confirms that the sidewalk that we're discussing from the parking area to the bridge is 80%, as well as beyond the bridge in the Groton Long Point is 80% reimbursable as well.
Yes, we can consult with the federal local bridge program and confirm the eligibility of that. In my past experience, generally, as long as something like a sidewalk, as long as it's matching your roadway limits, it would be considered eligible for funding. But we can certainly confirm that.
That'd be good to have for next meeting. Yeah.
What about a sidewalk from the bridge to 215?
Maybe
So
the,
I
maybe,
guess that's getting well beyond the scope of this project. Right now,
Yeah.
we're talking about cutting off the project limit, in the area of the Fisherman Restaurant and the Esker Point Beach. Just because that is the extent of the causeway that we're trying to preserve for the say the resilience of the roadway. And I guess that is the absolute limit of what the program would consider, the federal local bridge program would consider to be eligible for this project. They don't like to see long extensions of roadway included in a bridge replacement project. The program is geared toward bridge replacement, and when there are profile changes needed in a bridge replacement, then they'll consider the length of the roadway that's needed to make that profile change to be eligible under the program. But they won't consider extending the project, thousands of feet beyond the reasonable project limit. They won't consider that to be eligible. I could guarantee that.
I'll jump
It's not
in.
to say that the town couldn't have another project to, at another time, at a future date, to extend the limits of that sidewalk.
Yeah.
Yeah, if
it
I
would
could
be a
jump
good
in,
idea for the town to extend it from the parking lot at Esker up to Sachem Lane.
Yeah, I've put in our long-term capital improvement program, a number of high priority areas in town for sidewalk construction, infill and whatnot. And this is one of them, all the way from Brook Street to the parking lot here, because there are sidewalks sporadically along 215 on the west side. So eventually we will get sidewalks in this area.
Well, that's good.
It's just a matter of getting, funded through the council and the RTM.
Were we going to discuss maybe today or maybe a future night, the various options for the sidewalk on the bridge? Because I thought there were some pictures that showed different options. Or maybe
I
that's
think
a
what
future
we've
discussion.
seen to date has shown the sidewalk on the south side of the bridge. And, there was a question about what the limits were going to be, whether it was from the beach to the bridge or whether it went all the way to East Shore Ave. And then there were some suggestions, there was a suggestion by the homeowner here at 1000 Groton Long Point Road that the sidewalk be on the other side of the road because he considered I don't want to put words in his mouth, but considered that, Groton Long Point is looking at it as private property and thought that the
Other side is not.
the sidewalk shouldn't be connecting public property to private property. So.
No, I understand that. I apologize. I guess my question wasn't clear. I thought the visuals of the sidewalks on the bridge, there were a couple different options, or was there only just one option?
Okay, yes, there were options for how the sidewalk was going to be carried. I know that the the previous project manager, I believe, showed you some options to have the sidewalk, say on the boardwalk, separate from the roadway. That would not be eligible for funding under the project or under the federal local bridge program, just because it becomes a separate bridge, and it's also somewhat of a maintenance headache for the town to maintain that boardwalk. So I think if you do have a sidewalk along the road, you should keep it with the roadway bridge, as one structure, which makes it eligible under the program and also makes it easier to maintain.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I guess I expected there to be a lot more discussion based on the feedback from that homeowner as to the sidewalk limits and where sidewalks should go. So what we had kind of prepared to talk about was the right-of-way along Groton Long Point Road, and the potential difficulty of putting the sidewalk along the north side, given the impacts that we were already looking at for these homeowners here. But without that, if we're pretty well set on the sidewalk going on the south side of road.
Well, it may be important just to provide a high level detail of that, because if for any reason it comes to fruition that sidewalk cannot go in the area that this committee is recommending, it may be worthwhile to have that information available.
Sure. So do you think that you're saying you'd like to explore other options for having the sidewalk or not having the sidewalk, or
I guess my question would be is what's the reasoning? I understand the preference and the logical sense of why one side is being preferred to the other, but if for any reason that's not acceptable for one reason or another, what is the drawback to not doing the sidewalk on the other side?
What is the drawback to having a sidewalk along the north side?
Right.
Okay.
Why don't you just go through the impacts of that, John?
Yep. So with these properties here, 991 and 981 Groton Long Point Road in particular, we're talking about raising the elevation of the causeway and the roadway about 3 feet in front of these properties for resiliency, just to keep the roadway above the 100-year flood. And to do that, we have, picking up the edge of road, imagine this coming up 3 feet, maybe about, say the height of this mailbox here. We're talking about some slopes or retaining walls in front of these properties, and regrading, especially regrading driveways. To get from.
I think 81 is even worse, though.
Right.
When you look at it, the impact.
Right. Well, 81 has a garage in the front of the property here. So what we're talking about is regrading this driveway to a slope that is, I think, about 20%, we said last time, which is, it's very steep, and it's well beyond, a standard slope for a driveway should be about 6%. Or what is it? Can't remember exactly. It becomes quite steep. So by pushing, if we were to have the sidewalk on that side of the road as well and maintain the location of the roadway, we'd be making it steeper. We'd be pushing the top of slope, from the edge of the road another 5 or 6 feet toward that structure, toward that building. And that just makes the driveway steeper and makes the yard steeper. And it's a more severe impact to the property and may not even be feasible. So, and in the area of the restaurant, pushing this, the sidewalk in front of the restaurant, I think is not as bad based on the profile here, but there are some impacts to the parking lot that would have to be considered. So. Looking at the right-of-way in general, on the southeast corner, there are no right-of-way issues.
Right.
Because we only have the beach parking lot here. And largely, this is where we're picking up the profile the most, is at the bridge. So by the time we get over to 1000 Groton Long Point Road, the profile impacts aren't that bad. But here at 981, which is closest to the bridge, and 991, we are picking up grade quite a bit. So.
Okay, thank you for that. That makes sense.
I guess I'll open this up, Greg, if anyone has anything else they want to discuss tonight.
Might just ask one question about the very first slide you had that was showing the span, John?
Yes. We're gonna go back to that?
Yeah, please, just for point of discussion. Okay, yeah. The underbridge clearance on the new bridge. We're gonna raise the surface up. Are we raising the bottom up as well?
Yes, we are.
So you're gonna get a little bit more overhead as we go through the bridge.
Correct.
That's yeah. That's to the good.
Yeah. Yeah, we're gonna pick it up as high as we can. I think what we discussed is that there are goals that the program has for freeboard and underclearance at bridges. We won't be able to exactly meet the preferred target for underclearance at the bridge based on the right-of-way impacts that would occur if we were to try to meet that target. But it will be substantially better than it is now, and that will be acceptable under the federal local bridge program. So,
Fine.
Can I ask if there's any dredging going on under the bridge from the project?
yes. There's typically no dredging under the program because it's an environmental nightmare. Is there any maintenance of the channel now?
No.
Any dredge? No. Typically dredging is done by Army Corps where there is a navigation channel where it can be justified. And you don't typically see dredging for say recreational watercraft. I'm not an expert in the area.
Yeah,
I don't know whether that, that could be considered here. I don't think it would be considered for the for funding under the program.
Bray, what were you thinking about?
I thought in one of the earlier pictures from information handed out, it was showing a profile of the side, showing the depth of the water. It seemed as though that the current depth favors to the east side of the going underneath the bridge. And they were talking about removing some sort of superstructure that's down underneath there.
Yeah, could there be grading done under the project? I guess there. Yeah.
Well, I think I recall that conversation. I think it more had to do with what, John, what you were talking about in terms of the pile structure. And we heard tonight that they're going to be building outside that pile structure, right and left of it. And they're going to be cutting that pile structure off at the mud line. I guess existing mud line. So it's that would complicate the dredging in there anyway. But the problem in the channel, there's plenty of water under the bridge. The under bridge water depths are fine. It's to the north and south that you get into trouble.
Yeah, I think you can actually kind of see that in the aerial.
Yeah.
There's so much water coming through this opening here.
Yeah,
And if you go out there when the tides are coming in or going out, that water is really, really rushing through there.
It's moving now.
There's probably also some sediment buildup outside of that.
Yeah, typical.
Yeah.
Thank you. What about the riprap along the between the intertidal zone and coming up to the road structure? Is that just going to be added to, or is all that going to be removed and new material brought in?
Yeah.
Our hydraulic engineer has a designed riprap section that includes. It's shown in the earlier studies. It includes a specific size of riprap that would be needed based on the wave heights that are shown in the FEMA studies. And would you remove what's out there? I think some of that depends on the roadway and sidewalk limits. If we're building out the south edge of road to incorporate that sidewalk, I think you are kind of pushing that south a little bit. If you look at say the street view.
Yeah, you got an idea.
As you get close to the bridge, the south edge is steep and kind of hugs the south edge of road. We're talking about building a sidewalk south of this. So yeah, we are pushing that toward the sound. Anything else?
Nothing here.
Okay, so let's see. All right. So moving forward, I think we're ready to move into design. We do have some coordination to handle as far as reaching out to some of the property owners close to the bridge. And, based on discussion tonight, I think we discussed the sidewalk here. I don't know if there is some follow-up that's needed with the association on that. I think that was
David,
discussed a little bit. Is that David?
Yeah, this is David. I will do some research and gather some additional information for next meeting, if not sooner.
Okay.
Are there any utilities across that bridge, water or sewer?
There are sewer. The exit out of this.
Sewer's on the north side of the bridge. It goes underneath the water.
That's correct. Yeah.
We have a backup water supply for Noink going over the bridge.
Yep.
The water is on the north side of the bridge. It hangs off the bridge. You can't see it in the photo, but it's outside of the bridge structure, just kind of tucked under. And sewer goes around the bridge. There's a siphon under the channel. And, sewer generally runs down the middle of the road. But it skirts around the outside of the bridge to the north. And you have the utilities along the south, the overhead utilities along the south edge of road.
Yeah. What was that pipe hanging on the south side of the bridge?
It was on the north side.
I thought there was one shown on the south side in the picture.
Yeah, you know what? Let me look back at the
original slide, I think,
photo
right,
here.
right there. There it is.
I think that's the north side of the bridge.
Oh, okay. You're right. That is the north side.
Yeah.
North side. See the telephone poles.
Like I say, the water main, you have, let's see, going back to the aerial. I believe water comes in way up to the north. And you have a system that has, as someone mentioned, like a bypass or an alternate.
Yeah, it's backup for the Noink Fire District Water Company.
Right. So like water mains, they're often kind of a redundant system. So do we intend to meet again next month? And what would we like to discuss at that point?
I'd like to hear the, I hope over the next month, you can really get together with the owners. And that picture got a little more complicated when I heard this story about Groton Long Point tonight. But the landowners on either side of 1099 and 981.
Yeah.
About the effects of the roadway increase in elevation. I think we heard last time that that was a potential thorn. You could get into some litigation over takings and costs over takings. And we'd certainly like to have that resolved.
Yeah.
To the extent possible.
I agree.
And I know we've discussed the three property owners. There's no issue with the other property owners that are near there. No concern for them, correct?
Well, we discussed the ones that are most impacted in our meetings here, which are the ones closest to the bridge. But everyone,
I guess,
impacted to some extent through the project.
yeah, I guess I'm just wondering if we're going to reach out to those three, does it make sense to reach out to the other 2 or 4 that if they're going to have some impact, may want to inform them as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, John, you and I, we can get together and see what you can get for me that we can send or meet with these folks.
Yes.
Get a
Yep.
preliminary feedback.
Yeah, and that will take some design development. So we'll work together on a time frame for that. So whether we meet a month from now or whether it's, we push it so we can get some further design development and have a chance to talk to those people. It may make sense to push that out just a little bit.
Hey, are there currently markings that show where the roadway ends on these adjacent property owners' property? If somebody really can't complain too much about a sidewalk if it's not on their property, I wouldn't think.
Well, and everyone has access to the town GIS website.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, I'll take a
And
look
there
there.
are property lines and street lines shown on that website, so you don't even really need
Yeah. Okay.
engineering plans to kind of understand. Yep.
The issue is much more elevation.
Right.
Yeah.
It's yeah, you can't see from this the limits of grading from the proposed project. Yeah, that's the biggest impact that we've talked about.
Isn't Fort Hill something like 14%, Greg?
No, it's only 9%.
Yeah. You said 20%, John.
Yeah,
It's very
it's
steep.
very, very steep there to make that grade increase happen. And it may be too much. It certainly is feasible to incorporate some improvement. That was our target, to have that foot of freeboard for the 100-year flood. But again, I think people are really hung up on the 100-year flood because they think of it as, well, if this is something that happens once every 100 years, chances are it's not going to happen in my lifetime. That's not really the case. The 100-year flood is something that there's a 1% chance of that flood happening every year. And the 50-year flood here is substantially lower, and that's something that, again, it's a 2% chance that flood happens every year. So there is a substantial cost associated with raising the roadway to be above the 100-year flood.
Yeah, we could get, let's explore the issue. I think you have the thing in front of you, because we could get into some discussions of that. Someone might argue, now mind you, I'm coming from a resilience standpoint.
Yeah.
So understand how kind this is.
Yeah.
Doesn't make any sense at all to raise the bridge to the 100-year flood level. Because at that point, Groton Long Point is going to be gone. Try that one on. You take a look at what a 100-year flood means to Groton Long Point. It's a bunch of islands. So all Groton Long Point could survive might be in terms of anything, either evacuation, provide some evacuation routes or emergency routes for a while, and then you just have to plain evacuate, might be a 50-year flood level. I'd have to look.
Yeah, but don't forget Moffett Cove is there too, and we're a little higher mostly.
Right, that's right.
And that's our way out.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. And Clarence only a little bit higher though too. I mean, you still got, but you are higher, absolutely. But we may have to, when we start looking at some of these taking issues, we may have to look a little harder at the absolute resilience. Much as I don't like to say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's go to dinner. I have a question about the hydraulic study. Last time,
Yes.
I think you guys were at one point talking to Malone McBroom about doing some hydraulic work.
They are on board to do that, and they have the go-ahead to start their work. There is some work that they can do before we make all the decisions about the layout of the roadway and the profile. They have to prepare hydrologic studies, and they have to go ahead to do that now.
Right.
So
Thank you.
we're going to get them going so that these things are kind of moving in parallel, and we're not coming to a stopping point where we're waiting to, get information from them to finish the design. So.
Last question, I promise. The referendum. I thought April was sort of a critical day.
It is. I mean, we need to kind of start planning for it if that's, if we're shooting for November referendum. So I'll have to meet with our finance director, figure out what, when we really need to get some numbers together.
Right. I just thought of that when you talk about pushing off a little bit longer.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
So keep in mind, if it's only 20%, we might not go out to bond for that. We might pay it out of fund balance.
Roger.
But we'll have to discuss with finance.
That fund balance.
Deficit spending.
So John, at what point do we put in for the federal bridge application? I saw you had that on your last slide there.
Yes. I think that we wanted to have a handle on the, what the targets were for the profile and what we wanted to do for the typical section and for the sidewalk. And I think we do have a better handle on that now. And what we hoped to do was to get through some preliminary design where we had some better handle on the cost. you don't have to have an exact cost to go in and put in an application for funding. So we could have that as a target to get a funding application in with, a preliminary layout and a preliminary cost.
Okay.
In the next, I would say in the next couple months, we had in the timeline here. Some heavy preliminary design once we had these layout issues kind of sorted out, which it's going to have to be done in parallel with talking to these property owners. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. Anybody else have any other questions, comments, things you want to talk about? Looks like maybe we might meet in a couple months might make more sense. Is that what I'm hearing, John?
Oh.
Yeah, I know that we want to keep things moving. We want to have some progress on the design side, so we have something substantial to show the property owners here, and that's gonna take a little bit of time on our end. To me, 2 months would be fair to knock all that out, and as well as to have some time to discuss with them. I say April. Yeah. Gonna plan on that.
That sounds good. Can you just keep us informed as soon as you get a preliminary design, send it out to all of us?
Yes, I'll do that through Greg.
Okay.
So what are we figuring? April who? 22nd?
That's the third Thursday, Frank?
Third week in April.
That's a Thursday, yeah.
Sounds right.
I think it would be the 15th would be the
Yeah,
third
no,
tax day.
yeah,
Okay,
15th.
15th is third, right, that's fine. Okay,
All right.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
Thanks. If if anything comes up, you can always reach out and reach out to Greg or myself.
Good.
And we will be getting these presentations up on the website shortly.
thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
Night,
Thank you,
everyone.
Everybody.
Thanks. Have a good night. Take care.